one of the preferred methods of assassination during the Renaissance was poison. So you hear lots of stories of different politicians, or wealthy nobles using poison to dispatch their enemies. So obviously that was appealing to us. What we also had to wrestle with was that in the first game, one of the subjects that comes up amongst the assassins is the use of poison and how it's considered like the tool of a coward. But there is, again, because I can't say too much without giving away spoilers, there is a narrative justification for not just the use of poison in our world, because it's pretty much a given during the Renaissance, but the fact that assassins are now allowed to and are encouraged in some cases to actually use poison is explained when you play the game. The first challenge was we wanted to take characters, again, just like with the setting that people were familiar with, and sort of provide a new spin on them without betraying history. And something that was particularly challenging with Leonardo is that most people, when they think of him, envision this older man from that self-portrait. And in our case, throughout most of the game, Leo's quite young. He's, in his 20s and 30s, just like Ezio. And so we had to think of a way to introduce this character that people are familiar with, but present him in a new light. This is the young Leonardo, who's not yet, a master or a supreme mind. He, just like Ezio, is still learning and still finding himself, and so that was really interesting for us to sort of take a character that most people think they know and sort of cast him in a new light, but hopefully one that fits with what we do know about him. And again, we tried to consult history books and historians in crafting his personality. We know that he was actually fairly charming, and he had a sense of humor, and he was very vivacious and bubbly, and so we tried to capture all of that. We tried to create this character that wasn't so much a wise Zen master, but someone that's really exuberant and very excited about discovering all these new things.
Right, let's see it. Haha! You found another one. It's another blade design.
Ezio will become fairly close with a guy named Lorenzo de' Medici, who was the de facto ruler of Florence, even if officially he wasn't. He was the wealthiest and most powerful man, and the Medici family essentially ruled the city. Even if they didn't do so in title, they certainly did so just in practice. And this was a guy who had a lot of enemies and a lot of friends. He was a patron of the arts, but he also pissed off a lot of people, and so he was constantly having to sort of watch his back. At one point, there's a very famous historical episode known as the Pazzi Conspiracy, where a rival family known as the Pazzi conspired. They claim, with the consent of the Pope at the time, Pope Sixtus IV, to depose the Medici rulers in Florence so that the Pazzi family could take over. And so this is an event that you'll actually get to participate in when you play the game. And Ezio winds up saving Lorenzo, and as a result, the two of them begin this relationship. As we'll eventually discover, the men that wanted Lorenzo dead are the same people responsible for the tragedy that befalls Ezio at the beginning of the game, and so their interests are aligned, and they begin to work together to uncover this mystery and take down the bad guys. In our game, we have three different types of underworld factions. There are mercenaries, there are courtesans, and there are thieves. So for the thieves and the courtesans, for the most part, we invented characters. We just tried to make them fit with the times. We gave them sort of backgrounds and circumstances that were, they were impacted by, current events, but they are fictional characters. In one case, we have a condottiero, who is like a mercenary captain, who is actually based on a historical figure that lived in Venice. So when possible, we did try and weave some of the underworld figures in with actual historical figures, but in cases where we couldn't, we just tried to make them as true to the time period as possible. Writing a plot twist is a painful experience. It's best when they sort of happen randomly and it just strikes you and you're like, great, because other times you're so concerned about all the people on the internet message boards that are going to tell you that they saw it coming from a mile away and, their grandmother could do it better. And so we try and think of all of the various things that people are going to expect and then cross them off the list. And I think that there are a couple of instances in the game where people will be genuinely surprised. The storyline in this game evolves. Initially, this terrible thing happens to Ezio's family. He embarks on this quest for vengeance, but fairly quickly he begins to realize there's more going on, and it becomes a story that's less about vengeance and more about duty, as he discovers that he has this assassin heritage. And obviously you'll discover that the people involved in the the tragedy that befalls his family may or may not also be associated with the Templars. Because at the end of the day, the Assassin's Creed franchise is also very much about this eternal struggle between these two sides. And so we eventually in the story will work to show the player how it is the events at the beginning of the game are connected to the ages-old struggle between Templars and Assassins. So it still plays a very big role in our game, but its details are for the player to discover.